The luxury car sat lifeless in the middle of a rundown street, its engine as silent as a wounded beast stranded in the wild. A man stepped out, his sharp eyes scanning the unfamiliar surroundings. It was Keanu Reeves, a world-famous movie star. But tonight, he wasn't a celebrity. He was just a man stranded in the wrong place at the wrong time. Time was against him. A crucial meeting awaited. And every passing second pushed him further away from making it on time. He pulled out his phone, trying to call for roadside assistance, but there was no one available to help him quickly enough. Amidst the chaos of the slums, 3 young black boys, Malik, Jamal, and Deshaun, stood at a distance, observing the scene. They had grown up in a place where people only looked out for themselves. Where kindness was a rare commodity. But tonight, something was about to change. Before we continue this story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel because tomorrow, we have another special story just for you. The night was thick with humidity. The air heavy with the scent of gasoline and fried food from a nearby street vendor. The city never truly slept, but this part of town, the forgotten streets of the slums, was different. Here, the neon lights from the wealthier districts faded into flickering street lamps, and the sound of laughter was replaced by the occasional siren wailing in the distance. Pulling out his phone, he dialed for roadside assistance. The line rang once, then twice, before an automated voice informed him of an extended wait time. He muttered a curse under his breath. Of course, he murmured, glancing around. This was the worst possible place to be stranded. He was in an unfamiliar neighborhood, where the buildings were run down, the alleys dark. And the people on the sidewalks moved quickly, avoiding eye contact. He knew better than to judge a place by its looks, but there was no denying the unease creeping up his spine. From a distance, 3 figures stood watching. Malik, Jamal, and Deshaun were no strangers to broken-down cars. Growing up in this part of town, they had seen more abandoned vehicles than luxury ones. The sight of a high-end car like an Aston Martin in their neighborhood was rare, so rare that it immediately piqued their curiosity. Jamal, the tallest of the 3, nudged Malik with his elbow. "Yo. Is that who I think it is?" Malik squinted, taking in the figure standing by the car. He was dressed in all black, his face partially obscured by shadows. But there was something unmistakable about him, the beard, the hair, the way he carried himself. "No way," Malik muttered. "That's Keanu Reeves." Deshaun, the youngest and the most skeptical of the group, scoffed. "Man, y'all trippin'. What the hell is Keanu Reeves doin' in our neighborhood?" "I don't know," Jamal said, eyes locked on the stranded man. "But he looks like he's in trouble." The 3 boys exchanged glances. People in this part of town didn't stop to help strangers, let alone millionaires. Everyone had their own problems. Their own struggles. But something about the way Keanu stood there, checking his watch, looking down the street, then back at his phone, made him seem less like a celebrity and more like just another guy who needed a hand. The boys watched as Keanu tried the ignition again. The car whined in protest but didn't budge. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his posture. "Should we go help?" Malik asked. Deshaun snorted. "Help him? Man, look at that car. You think he needs our help? Dude probably got people on speed dial who can fix that thing in 10 minutes. Jamal wasn't so sure. He had seen rich people before, on TV, in magazines. Even the occasional businessmen passing through. But something about Keanu felt different. He didn't have bodyguards. He wasn't on a flashy phone call bragging about his connections. He was just, stuck. "I think we should," Jamal finally said. Malik hesitated, but then nodded. "All right." Deshaun sighed. "Man, I swear, y'all gonna get us in some shit one day. But he followed them anyway. The three boys made their way across the cracked pavement, their sneakers scraping against the rough concrete. As they approached the car, Keanu noticed them. His body tensing slightly. He wasn't afraid, he had been in far worse situations before, but he remained cautious. Jamal raised his hand slightly in a non-threatening manner. Yo, you need help? He had seen enough in life to know that trouble didn't always come in the form of a full-grown man. Sometimes, it wore sneakers and a hoodie. Malik, Jamal, and Deshaun stopped a few feet away, giving him space. They knew better than to run up on someone, especially a stranger who had no reason to trust them. Jamal, always the boldest of the group, cleared his throat. So, what's wrong with your car? Keanu exhaled, running a hand through his hair. It just died on me. I was driving, and suddenly, the engine shut off. I tried restarting it, but nothing. He glanced at his watch again. Time was slipping away, and his frustration was mounting. Malik stepped forward, his eyes flicking to the sleek black Aston Martin. He had always been fascinated by cars, thanks to his father, who used to work in an auto shop before he lost his job. Did you hear any weird noises before it stopped? He asked. Keanu nodded. Yeah. Kind of a grinding sound. And then it just shut down. Malik scratched his chin. Could be a battery issue, or maybe something wrong with the fuel pump. He turned to Jamal. Pop the hood. Jamal blinked. You talking to him or me? Malik rolled his eyes. Him, man. He the one with the car. Keanu gave a small chuckle despite himself. He reached into the car, pulled the lever. And the hood released with a soft clunk. Malik stepped closer and carefully lifted it, revealing the powerful engine beneath. Deshaun whistled. Damn. That's a clean-ass engine. Malik ignored him. Eyes scanning the components. He wasn't an expert, but he knew enough. He checked the battery terminals, then leaned in to inspect the belts and hoses. Everything looked fine. But that didn't mean much. Jamal crossed his arms. So. You know what's wrong. Malik sighed. I need some tools to check properly. Keanu straightened. You have tools. Deshaun smirked. Man. We got everything in this neighborhood. Malik glanced at Deshaun. Go get the toolkit from your house. Tell your brother we need it. Deshaun groaned. Man. Why I always gotta be the one running errands? Because you the fastest, Malik shot back. Deshaun grumbled under his breath but turned and jogged off down the street. Keanu watched him go. Then looked back at Malik and Jamal. You guys do this often? Jamal grinned. Nah. But we know how to survive. Keanu nodded slowly. I appreciate it. Malik smirked. Don't thank us yet. We ain't fixed nothin'. Keanu leaned against the side of his car, exhaling slowly as he watched Deshaun disappear down the street. The night air felt heavier now. The distant sound of a police siren echoing somewhere beyond the maze of old brick buildings. He glanced at his watch again, time was slipping through his fingers like sand. Malik, now fully focused, reached under the hood and started checking the connections. He had seen his father work on countless engines, though this one was far more advanced than anything he had ever touched. Jamal asked. Malik tapped his fingers against the car's frame. I gotta check a few things, but if it's what I think it is, we might be able to fix it. Deshaun sighed. Man, I hope so. 'Cause if not, we just wasted all this time for nothing. Keanu crossed his arms. I trust you guys. Malik looked up, surprised. Most people, especially strangers, didn't say things like that around here. Then let's make sure we don't let you down, Malik said, rolling up his sleeves. And with that, they got to work. Malik wiped his hands on his jeans. Then reached into the toolbox, pulling out a wrench. The night air was thick, pressing down on them like an invisible weight. And the distant hum of traffic reminded Keanu that the rest of the city was still moving while he remained stuck. How long you think this'll take? Keanu asked, his voice calm. But the urgency in his eyes betrayed him. Malik didn't look up. Dunno yet. Gotta check a few things first. He leaned over the engine. Hands working quickly as he tested the battery terminals and examined the connections. Try it again, he instructed. Keanu climbed into the driver's seat and turned the key. The car sputtered. Struggling to catch. The same grinding noise echoed through the night, but for a split second, the engine almost roared back to life, almost. Then it died again. Malik frowned. That's different. Jamal tilted his head. Good different or bad different? Malik exhaled. Means we're close. He tapped a metal pipe lightly, then turned to Keanu. Your fuel pump might not be getting enough juice. If I can get it to cycle, we might be able to jumpstart it. Keanu checked his watch again. Every passing second made his chances of making it to his meeting slimmer. He wasn't sure why. But part of him wanted these kids to succeed, not just for his sake, but for theirs. They had taken a risk to help him, and he could see that they weren't just messing around. Malik glanced at Deshaun. Hand me the jumper cables. Deshaun dug through the toolbox and pulled out a tangled mess of wires. Man, these things older than me. Don't matter, Malik said. They'll work. As Malik connected the cables, Jamal stood up straight, suddenly alert. He scanned the street, eyes narrowing. Yo, we got company. Keanu followed his gaze. Two men had appeared at the far end of the street, leaning against a rusted-out car. They weren't just standing there, they were watching. Deshaun tensed. Shit. Keanu could feel the shift in the air. His mind likely racing through every possible escape route. Deshaun, usually the loudest of the group, stood unusually still. Keanu exhaled sharply. This wasn't right. With a swift motion, he pulled the car to the curb and killed the headlights. His heartbeat was steady, too steady. Years in Hollywood had taught him to act under pressure. But the tension in the air right now was very real. The two men finally reached the boys. One was tall and lanky, his arms covered in faded tattoos. The other was stockier, with a thick chain around his neck. They moved with the kind of confidence that came from knowing they owned the streets. Y'all real helpful tonight, the lanky one said. Keanu turned toward the three boys, who were still processing what had just happened. Jamal ran a hand over his head. Man, I can't believe they just left. They didn't leave, Malik muttered. They just waitin' for another time. Keanu knew Malik was right. The way those men had walked away wasn't surrender, it was delay. They would remember this. He sighed and reached into his pocket, pulling out his wallet. Listen, he said, flipping through a few crisp bills. You guys didn't have to help me. I know this isn't much, but... Jamal immediately took a step back, shaking his head. Maybe in his late 40s, wearing a dark coat that barely moved in the warm night breeze. His gaze swept across the street before locking onto Keanu. The boys instinctively took a step back. They had grown up knowing that when an unfamiliar car pulled up in their neighborhood, especially one that sat idle like a ghost in the dark, it rarely meant anything good. Keanu stayed still, his instincts on high alert. He wasn't afraid, but something about this man felt different from the thugs they had just faced. The man's voice was deep and measured. You got lucky tonight. Keanu's jaw tightened. I don't believe in luck. The man let out a low chuckle, but his eyes never left Keanu. Maybe not. But those kids do. He gestured toward the three boys, who were watching him warily. They just saved your ass. What you gonna do about it? Keanu's brows furrowed. Who are you? The man ignored the question. They helped you, no questions asked. No money. No expectations. That kind of loyalty. That kind of heart. He shook his head. Rare in a place like this. Jamal exchanged a glance with Malik. Yo, what is this dude talking about? The man took a step forward, his eyes sharp. You think they can keep helping people forever? You think this neighborhood cares? He let the words sink in before continuing. They need a way out. Keanu exhaled. He already knew that. He had felt it the moment he saw them, smart, quick, resilient. They weren't just surviving. They had potential. The man nodded toward Keanu's car. You can drive away now. Go back to your life. Or you can do something that actually matters. Keanu looked at the boys. Malik, trying to mask his uncertainty. Jamal, pretending he wasn't listening but hanging on to every word. Deshaun, shifting on his feet, waiting for someone to make a move. Keanu made his decision. He turned back to the man. What do you have in mind? The man studied Keanu for a long moment before giving a small nod. Good, he said. Follow me. The boys exchanged uncertain glances, but Keanu didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, following the man as he walked toward the sedan. Jamal frowned. Yo, we just gonna let Keanu walk off with some random dude? Malik hesitated but then muttered. He knows what he's doing, dot. Deshaun scoffed. Man, I hope so. Keanu stopped a few feet from the car. The man leaned against it, crossing his arms. I see people like them all the time. Smart. Capable. But stuck. He looked toward the boys. If they stay here, life's gonna swallow them whole. Just a matter of time. Keanu's expression was unreadable. And you want me to do what? Adopt them? The man chuckled. Nah. But you got resources. You got reach. His voice lowered. You can change their lives if you want to. Keanu didn't answer right away. His mind raced. He had spent years donating to charities, funding schools, giving to causes that mattered. But this was different. This was personal. He turned to the boys, who were watching him closely. Then he made up his mind. You ever been on a film set? Keanu asked. Jamal blinked. Huh? Keanu smiled. You just fixed a car under pressure. I think you'd be great in the stunt department. The boys stared at him. Keanu pulled out his phone. How about we find out? The boys stared at Keanu, their expressions frozen between shock and disbelief. A film set. Malik finally spoke. His voice skeptical. You serious? Keanu smiled. Yeah. You guys just proved you can work under pressure, think on your feet, and problem solve. That's exactly what happens behind the scenes in the stunt department, mechanics crew, and production teams. You ever thought about working in Hollywood? Jamal let out a short laugh. Man. Only in my dreams. Keanu pulled out his phone. Dreams gotta start somewhere. He tapped the screen, making a call. I know people in the industry, people who could teach you skills. Give you real jobs. Not handouts, opportunities. The boys exchanged glances. Deshaun folded his arms. Ain't nobody ever given us a shot before. Keanu locked eyes with him. Then maybe it's time someone did. Silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, Malik nodded. Jamal ran a hand over his head. Man. Hollywood? Deshaun smirked. Bet they ain't ready for us. Keanu chuckled. Then let's find out. The moment felt surreal, a shift in reality. Just hours ago, they were three kids in a rough neighborhood, fixing a broken car for a stranger. Now, they were staring at the possibility of something more. As Keanu walked them toward his car, the city lights in the distance flickered like stars. For the first time, the future looked different. For the first time, it looked possible.